Good afternoon, this is Professor Bobo, and it is week 2. This week we'll be reading chapters 3 and 4. They will go over cyberspace and FERPA, and this is my instructor video that you will see in the entrances, okay? And then you have your grading rubric, which I will be using to grade your assignment. All right, so I have a PowerPoint on chapters 2 and 3 that I'll be kind of going over and highlighting key information for you. So cyberspace. All right, so with technology, and advances in society, especially with the internet, we have had, there's been significant impact on the profession of counseling, and the counseling profession has established a solid presence in the internet. Technology offers us an abundant amount of opportunities to access virtual libraries and research the latest information on client problems and effective techniques, as well as collaborating and consulting with professionals around the world. So to shorten that, we definitely need technology. It's important to us. Technology is being used today in mental health in ways that were previously unimagined. So counselors are providing real-time ways with video counseling for clients, and they could be on the other side of the world. And clients are presented with issues related specifically to their social media activities, such as internet addiction, cyberbullying, and leaving current relationships for ones they found online. So I want to reference the Code of Ethics, Section H. This section helps us to devote our ethical issues related to technology, and states that counselors, whether or not they want to, they have to adapt to the use of technology. So counselors should actively attempt to understand the evolving nature of the profession with regards to distance counseling, technology, and social media, and how such resources may be used to better serve clients. Counselors should strive to become knowledgeable about these resources, and counselors who engage in the use of distance counseling, technology, and/or social media development should have knowledge and skills regarding the related technical, ethical, and legal considerations, and special certifications and additional coursework. So the Code of Ethics requires that counselors actively attempt to understand the new issues related to technology and counseling, and further, if they engage in the use of technology, to develop knowledge and skill. So this is important. So let's talk about direct services and what they are, because this relates to you as you go into practicum and field work. Direct services are delivery components of the ASCA national model, and there are direct and indirect services. So direct services are in-person interactions between school counselors and students, and it includes core curriculum, individual student planning, responsive services, and those things require you to be face-to-face with the particular student. School counseling delivery can also include synchronous and asynchronous delivery, where one is not physically co-located with a student, but person to person rather than in person. Indirect services are those that are provided on behalf of the student as a result of the counselor's interaction with others. And these services are delivered through strategies and referrals, consultation, and collaboration. And as ASCA members, respondents indicate how frequently they use online and remote settings for the system. So what is the American Counseling Association's position on technology? So the school counselor and student safety and use of technology, which supports school counselors in encourage students to take full advantage of technological resources. So the collaboration of the school counselor, educator, parents, and law enforcement officials is necessary to ensure students' protection and aid in disclosing possible risks of internet use. So we're talking about when the child is interacting in negative behavior on the internet. Those internet things such as that could be a risk to someone else. So the students must be taught to excel in this industry where there are high-paying jobs and business growth, and they're dependent on technology. The ability they need to learn how to navigate technological devices, and they need to determine how student survival and how they can excel globally with these technological resources, and be aware of their digital footprint. So it's our responsibility as school counselors to ensure that we are teaching the students these skill sets. And one of the documents I want to share with you now is that helps us to share these are this is the Facebook for Schools. So this Facebook and technology has come together with the American Counseling Association and I Keep Safe to help the students manage safety. So this is a document that you could share with your students, and I have this referenced in my PowerPoint, and I'll go back to it. But this document is a document that is used to share with your parents and to help yourself in protecting those students from the online predators and addiction to online. And so that is what I wanted to share with you in regards to that. So I'll go ahead and get back to that, all right? Okay, so it's our responsibility, again, to make sure that the students are, aware, and the parents are aware of the challenges that they may face with technology, okay? So it's also our responsibility to to make our students aware of behavioral and safety privacy risks that students could face due to technology. So we want them to be aware of like online addiction, invasion of privacy and disclosure of personal information, inappropriate online communication, easy access to inappropriate media, cheating and copyright infringements, cyberbullying and harassment, and sexual predators. So these are all things that we want to protect our students from, okay? So there's some actions that school counselors can take to promote safety. We want to collaborate on the development of school policy. We want to respond to online incidents affecting conditions of learning. We want to assist the community in detecting at-risk behavior. And we want to address digital citizenship, technological literacy, privacy, reputation, and social awareness. So can you be disciplined or terminated for behavior on your social media? So there have been a dozen cases that demonstrate that educators can and do lose their job over online comments and pictures. A number of states have passed laws or policies limiting student and educator contact in cyberspace to avoid improper student and educator relationships. The American Association of American Educators proposed that professional educators must act with a conscientious effort to exemplify the highest ethical standards. So yes, for your own Facebook page, and in the book, it did reference some court cases where someone had, and they were in their own private life, but their pictures or their behavior on their social media was inappropriate for their job and their job title. So this falls under professionalism, and due to the laws, they were dismissed. And the school counselor may have sued to try to defend him or herself. However, they lost that particular case. So it is true that you can lose your case for what you place on your own personal webpage. So it's important to monitor that well, okay? Professional distancing. So, we also use and promote these different tools. So when we are trying to promote these tools, we want to make sure that we don't become friendly with our students when we're creating these different things. If we say, open up an Instagram, open up a Facebook account, and you're showing your student how to do that, how to monitor it. As school counselors, this is something that we would want to do, to highlight some of our features, especially as we move into college and career, so that colleges could Google you, but you want them to see you Googled in a positive aspect. So if we do that and we encourage that, we need to be aware of the possibility that we should not be interacting them, sharing them, allowing them to see our pages and becoming more of a peer and less of a professional. So there have been cases where there's been a fine line and teachers have asked or had the student to create the account, but then interacted with them in a peer manner and not as a professional. So these are things that we need to be aware of. And this is one of the cases, Spannerman versus Huge. And the educator requested that the students open up this social networking. And he was an English teacher, and he was terminated, and this was in Connecticut, for reaching out to his students. And back then it was MySpace, encouraging communication. The school board fired him because the communication with the students were peer-like conversation, and they felt that it impeded the learning atmosphere. He then sued, but he filed a lawsuit, but lost in court when it was determined that the destruction of the learning process outweighed the educational value of MySpace. So even though he was trying to teach them how to use technology, he crossed the line with his actual written communication. The term disinhibition effect was a term that was used in this chapter, where people say and do things in cyberspace that they wouldn't ordinarily do face-to-face in a face-to-face conversation. The online environment creates that feeling of invisibility and anonymity, and that anonymity amplifies this effect. And it results in people dropping their guard and revealing too much about themselves, such as secrets, fears, and wishes. And this sometimes asynchronous effect, not interacting in real time, such as emails and message boards, seem to contribute to this disinhibiting effect. So student safety on the internet, again, it's important that school counselors make it a part of their yearly trainings with parents to improve communication with their children around the internet use, and help the parents to understand how to establish and reinforce internet use rules, such as keeping the computer in common areas of the house. So the initiative that I showed you before is the download, and you can use that website to access the download as a tool for you when you're beginning to do some of those trainings, all right? Cyber search and seizure. This is important because we used to search the personal, the backpack, the locker, etc. Now we're more concerned with what happened on the devices that they're using, whether it's their own cell phone or a computer that they brought to school. So we need to apply the search and seizure law to cyberspace, and this is how you do it. A reasonable search of a student's possession by a school official occurs when the school officials are suspicious of a student's activities and have reason to believe that the student has violated school regulation, and when conducting a search is directly related to the initial suspicion. Unreasonable search and seizure has been the topic of many court cases involving school officials. There was a school case with Klump's cell phone. When Klump violated the school rules and used it in the classroom, and that was an automatic, taking the phone from the student. So that was okay. But if you just turned it off and kept the phone, and then returned it according to policy and procedure, that would have been fine. But the teacher and the principal accessed Klump's personal text messages, voice messages, and made phone calls to classmates that were inquiring about drug activity. And then this drug-related text message came in while the officials were in possession of the phone. So at this point, they were under the impression that they could go ahead and apply these rules to and give consequences to this to other students regarding the drug issue. However, they lost that case in the court because it wasn't reasonable. There was no connection that at that time the drug activity, and he wasn't doing anything at that time. So there was no reason for them to pursue the search into the cell phone. The child only had the cell phone out, he wasn't using it properly, and the school guidelines were simply to confiscate the phone and return it to a parent or a guardian or whatever the additional rules were. Okay, so chapter 4 goes into FERPA. And FERPA, you should be trained on that annually. This is an annual requirement for school counselors to know, and other employees here at Concordia. We are trained annually on FERPA. So what is it? It is the 1974 Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. It's a federal legislation governing educational records and dictating all written information regarding a student if a student is handling or disseminated for the protection of the students and their family. The U.S. Department of Education Policy Office, Compliance Office administers FERPA, which gives the parents the opportunity to inspect and review their children's education records and have a voice in how the information is shared with others. Managing the school education records does not fall within the appropriate roles of a school counselor, but it's important to have working knowledge of the guidelines and advocating for their legal and ethical issues, right? So this is very important, all right? So what are the boundaries for FERPA? So a parent or an eligible student must provide a written consent before personally personally identifying information is disclosed from a student's educational records. The following is a partial list of exceptions that do not require a parent or eligible student's permission. So if a school official with legitimate educational interest, school counselors employed by or under contract with the schools are considered school officials, along with teachers and others. Other schools to which a student is transferring, federal, state, and local educational officials for the purpose of audit and evaluation. Those conducting specific studies for schools, holders of judiciary order or lawful issued subpoenas, appropriate parties in connection with health or safety emergencies, local and state authorities in the juvenile justice system in compliance with specific state laws, and agency caseworkers or other representatives of state or local child welfare agencies or tribal organizations in relation to foster child cases. So these are the boundaries in which a written consent, and then also the exceptions for permission. So directory information is the only thing that can be released without the parent's consent. And directory information is typically includes basic contact information about the student, such as name, address, cell phone number. But FERPA allows school districts to determine the items they will consider as directory information within certain parameters. So school districts can establish policies and procedures regarding the release of their directory information, including having limited directory information policies. And they may also decide to not participate in releasing directory information at all. The parents have the right to request their students' directory information. So how often are parents notified of FERPA laws? They are notified annually. So usually within those enrollment packets, there's a disclosure in there in regards to FERPA and its rules. That happens at the beginning of the year. Oftentimes, parents do not read those materials, so it's important to point that out to them. So the FERPA guidelines delineate who can have access to those educational rights and records without parent permission. And we fall under that category as school officials. So we have to have a legitimate interest. So as you're going through the different cases and you're accessing your students' records and you come across information that should be there or that shouldn't be there in their CUME folders, this is considered your legitimate educational interest. Now, if you have no reason to have access to students' file, the student is an A student, doing well, not showing any signs, it would be kind of odd that you would be going into those files or passing on information to other teachers that, you know, are not, don't have a legitimate educational interest. So when we're accessing it, we should be accessing for performing appropriate tasks within our job description, performing a task related to student education, performing a task related to discipline, and performing services or benefits related to the student or the student's family, such as counseling, healthcare, or job placement. All right, so that pretty much covers our FERPA guidelines. The chapter does go over many specific court cases. I highly recommend that you copy some of those court pages that seem interesting or puzzling to you as to the results of them, and take a look and then look them up online and read the detailed transcripts so that you are able to see what additional information was provided and what were the counts in which the case was lost, because sometimes there's several different counts. And we're going to go into that and some future, the obligation to court chapter as to, you know, how and they go about making these decisions. Thank you so much. Again, this is week 2, so we are taking a look at week 2. And as I shared with you earlier, we have our discussion board topic for the week, and then we have our assignment due on Sunday, July 10th, of ethics and professionalism. Thank you, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me.